The grand hall of the Scifi imperial palace shimmered with silver light. Walls of crystal reflected the glow of hovering lanterns, and the air carried the soft hum of energy shields. Every noble in the room wore elaborate robes that changed color with movement. Yet their faces showed one thing: unease. At the center stood Princess Alira of Zeroth, heir to one of the oldest alien empires in the Orion sector. Her long silver hair glowed faintly, her pale lavender eyes sharp with intelligence. But behind that grace, her heart was beating too fast. She was about to marry a human. The Council had announced the alliance months ago. The Human Federation had grown powerful, fast. Their ships crossed the stars at speeds once thought impossible. And their soldiers were known for never backing down, even when facing death itself. The Scifi Empire, weakened by decades of border wars, needed them but to bind the treaty. An ancient Zerathi custom demanded a royal marriage. That's how Princess Alira found herself preparing. To marry a creature from what her people called a death world, a place so hostile that its life forms were said to be half mad just for surviving. Whispers filled the hall. "Humans are unpredictable," said one noble. "They live on poison air," muttered another. "They destroy what they touch," hissed a third. Alira kept her chin high, but inside, she felt a cold weight in her chest. She had studied humans. Their history was full of wars. Even their peace seemed fragile. How could such beings understand the gentle balance of Scifi culture? She turned her eyes to the open balcony, where the human envoy ship was descending through the clouds. Its hull was made of dark metal, its engines roaring like thunder. The sound alone made several Scifi attendants flinch. "They arrive," announced the High Chancellor, bowing. "Princess, are you ready?" Alira nodded, even though she wasn't. Let it begin. The landing platform shimmered under the glow of twin suns. Rows of Scifi guards stood with ceremonial spears, their armor gleaming white. On the opposite side, the human delegation disembarked. They were taller than expected, heavier. Every step of their boots sounded like a drumbeat. At the front walked Captain Nathan Cole, the man chosen as her husband -2-B. He wore a dark Federation uniform, simple and practical, with a silver emblem on his chest. His face was strong, his hair short, and a faint scar ran from his temple to his jaw. But what struck Alira most wasn't his appearance, it was his eyes. They were steady, calm, blue, like the oceans of her homeworld's hollows, but deeper somehow. He didn't look like a savage. He looked like someone who had seen too much and survived anyway. When he stopped in front of her, the entire hall went silent. Nathan gave a formal salute, then lowered his head slightly. "Princess Alira of Zereth," he said, his voice deep but gentle. "Thank you for receiving me. I come here not as conqueror or warrior, but as a friend and future ally." Alira blinked. His tone carried no arrogance, no demand. It was respectful, almost humble. She replied carefully, "The Scifi Empire welcomes you, Captain Cole. May this union bring peace to our peoples." He smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "That is my hope as well." Behind him, a human aide whispered something about protocol. Nathan ignored it and stepped forward just enough to offer a small object in ancient earth flower preserved in crystal. "This is called a rose," he said. "On my world, it symbolizes hope that can grow even in harsh soil." The nobles murmured disapproval. "A dead plant?" one whispered. But Alira found herself staring at the rose, mesmerized by its color. A vivid red olive, even in death. "Thank you," she said softly. The official ceremony began in the Hall of Unity, a massive chamber carved from glowing stone. The two species stood opposite each other, banners fluttering in artificial wind. The High Oracle read the binding words, while Alira and Nathan stood side by side before the galaxy's watching eyes. Yet throughout the entire ritual, Alira couldn't stop stealing glances at him. He stood perfectly still, respectful but not stiff. When the High Oracle mentioned sacrifice and duty, his jaw tightened slightly, as if the words meant more to him than they should. When it was done, The audience applauded, some out of duty, some out of fear. The alliance had been sealed. The Princess of Zereth was now officially bound to a human. Later, during the royal feast, Alira sat at the head table beside Nathan. The hall was filled with laughter and music, though the air was heavy with tension. Alien nobles whispered from afar. Human officers whispered too. No one quite knew how to act. Nathan didn't eat much. He looked around with quiet curiosity, studying the shimmering architecture and floating lights. You dislike the food? Alira asked politely. He smiled a little. Not at all. Just different. Your people prefer light flavors. Humans are used to stronger ones. You mean spicy? She asked, surprised. Hot enough to burn, he said, half smiling again. Alira chuckled despite herself. That sounds painful. Get used to it, he replied. Then his eyes met hers again, and something in his gaze made her heart skip. It wasn't aggression, it was warmth. A kind of tired kindness that felt out of place for someone she was told to fear. That night, after the feast, Alira returned to her private garden overlooking the twin moons. She needed quiet. But she wasn't alone. She noticed movement near the gates Nathan, walking alone through the moonlight. No guards, no entourage. He noticed her too and paused. Forgive me, he said. I needed air. I didn't mean to intrude. It's fine, she replied. Few come here at night. He hesitated. You have a beautiful world. It used to be, she said softly. Before the wars, before we lost so much. He nodded, stepping closer to the railing. Humans lost a lot too. Maybe that's something we have in common. They stood there in silence for a while, watching the moons drift. Finally, Alira asked what had haunted her for days. Captain Cole, why did your people agree to this marriage? You could have demanded better terms. The Federation is strong. Nathan looked at her, his face unreadable for a moment. Then he said, because strength isn't just about winning wars. It's about what happens after. We don't want more graves. We want peace. Peace? She repeated quietly, as if testing the word. He nodded. I know what the galaxy says about us. That we're violent. That we're brutal. Maybe we are when we need to be. But not here. Not now. The sincerity in his voice startled her. For the first time, she didn't hear the monster from the rumors. She heard a man. Days turned into weeks. The wedding had bound them by law, but not yet by understanding. They began traveling together aboard the joint flagship Unity, visiting allied systems to display the new peace. At first, they barely spoke except in public events. Alira maintained her distance, always polite, always composed. But she couldn't help noticing how the humans worked. They were different. Direct, practical, unafraid to question orders, but fiercely loyal once they gave their word. Even the lowest-ranked engineer carried himself with pride, and they treated each other like family. Once, during a small accident in the ship's hangar, a fuel pipe ruptured. The alarm blared and workers scattered. But Nathan didn't hesitate. He ran straight into the smoke, sealing the valve by hand. When the emergency teams arrived, his uniform was scorched, his face blackened with soot, but he was laughing. All good now? He shouted, coughing. Alira had rushed to see what happened. When she saw him covered in grime, still smiling, she didn't know whether to scold him or thank him. You could have died, she said angrily. He shrugged. Someone had to do it. You are the captain. You should have ordered someone else. He looked at her with a small smile. Leaders don't order others into danger they wouldn't face themselves. That's what humans believe. His words stayed in her mind long after that day. As the days passed, she found herself watching him more closely. The way he listened to everyone, even alien servants. The way he never raised his voice, even when frustrated. The way he stood guard outside her quarters one night when a minor riot broke out on board, not because he had to, but because he wanted her safe. He was unlike any warrior she had known. And yet, the galaxy still called his kind brutal one evening. While reviewing diplomatic reports, Alira found old holorecords of human wars. They were terrible. Entire cities turned to ash, soldiers fighting hand to hand in the mud. But in the same archives, she found something else: footage of humans rebuilding, helping the wounded, risking their lives for strangers. She realized then that humans weren't cruel by nature. They were survivors. They didn't fight for pleasure. They fought to protect what mattered. For the first time, Alira wondered if her fear had blinded her. One night, as their ship drifted through quiet space, Nathan joined her in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent and ancient. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "Yes," she whispered. "I used to think space was cold, but lately, it feels different." He looked at her curiously. "Different how?" "Maybe it's not the stars," she said, turning to face him. "Maybe it's the people you share the view with." For a moment neither spoke. The hum of the engines filled the air. Nathan smiled faintly. "You've changed your opinion of humans, haven't you?" "Perhaps," she admitted. "I was told you were dangerous," he chuckled softly. "We can be. But danger and cruelty aren't the same thing." "And what are you then?" she asked. He looked out at the stars again. "Just someone trying to prove we can be more than what the galaxy fears." The Unity sailed through the vast black of space, its silver hull reflecting distant stars. Princess Alira stood at the observation deck, her pale lavender eyes scanning the nebula ahead. The galaxy had changed so much in the last weeks. She had crossed systems, met countless alien leaders, and seen humans in action. And yet, every day, her understanding of them deepened in ways she had never imagined. Captain Nathan Cole entered quietly, his steps soft, despite his height. He paused beside her, looking at the colorful swirl of gas and dust. "The Indari Nebula," he said, pointing with one gloved hand. "They say travelers who pass through here often see visions of the past." Lyra glanced at him, curious. "Visions? What do you mean?" Nathan shrugged. "Some say it's the light bending in strange ways. Others say it's a reminder that time is bigger than we think." He smiled faintly. "I just think it's beautiful." Alira nodded. "Yes, beautiful. And dangerous." Nathan glanced at her, his eyes steady. "Much like humans, I suppose," he said lightly. She blinked. He was smiling, yet there was a weight in his gaze. "I don't know if I can say the same," she admitted. "My people warned me about humans, that they are cruel, that they are unpredictable." Nathan sighed, leaning slightly on the railing. "We're not perfect. Humans can be harsh, yes, but most of us fight to protect, not destroy." Alira considered his words. She had seen his calm in council meetings, his fairness in disputes, but she had yet to see him in the true crucible of human strength. She wasn't sure she was ready, but the galaxy was about to test them both. The first mission came sooner than expected. A small convoy, carrying supplies and diplomats, was attacked near the Rendari system by space pirates. Their ships were fast, lightly armored, and merciless. Communications crackled with panic. The humans on board the Unity moved immediately, following Nathan's calm, precise commands. "Marines, shields up." Nathan's voice rang through the ship's intercom. "Escort the convoy. No one gets through." Alira watched as humans and alien allies worked side by side. She saw soldiers sprint across corridors, shields in hand, coordinating with engineers who repaired damaged doors in real time. For a moment, she felt fear rising. The reports had told of human brutality, but what she saw was disciplined, organized courage. "Princess," a human officer said, bowing slightly, "the pirates are using cloaking devices. They could appear anywhere along the convoy's path." Alira's hand went to her chest. "Can they be stopped?" Nathan stepped forward, scanning the holomap of the battle. "Yes, but it won't be easy. We need to draw them into a trap. Follow my lead." The next hours were a whirlwind. Nathan directed teams, coordinated fire from the Unity's cannons, and moved between control stations. Every decision was fast, yet precise. Every command was calm, yet urgent. Alira had never seen such composed strength. Even when pirate fighters appeared close to the supply ships, Nathan remained unshaken, positioning human Marines to shield the convoy while alien ships delivered counterattacks. Then a warning flashed on the main screen. A pirate vessel had broken through the escort perimeter. It was heading directly for the diplomat transport. Without hesitation, Nathan grabbed a remote panel and activated the Unity's interceptor drones. He guided them manually, weaving through debris and fire. Alira held her breath, unable to move. She watched as Nathan's hands flew over the controls, issuing simultaneous orders to his crew. Every decision he made balanced risk and protection. The pirate ship closed in, its weapons charged. In the observation deck, Alira realized she could see the glint of the enemy's plasma cannons. Nathan didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned forward, his voice calm. Now. The drones surged forward, striking the pirate vessel and disabling its engines. The ship spun uncontrollably, drifting away from the convoy. The immediate danger had passed. Nathan's uniform was streaked with sweat, his hair slightly disheveled. Yet he stood upright, giving one last command to ensure the convoy reached safety. Alira felt her chest tighten. The so-called brutal human had faced death without hesitation. Not for glory, not for cruelty, but to protect. And yet he didn't look proud. He looked ordinary, almost humble. After the battle, the Unity returned to orbit around a quiet moon. Alira found Nathan in the medbay, checking on the human Marines and alien crew alike. Some had minor burns, others were exhausted, but all smiled when Nathan approached, as if their trust in him went deeper than duty. "You could have stayed in the command room," she said, her voice soft. "You didn't have to risk yourself like that." Nathan looked at her, wiping a smear of soot from his face. "I could have," he admitted. "But someone has to set the example. Humans fight because we care about each other, not because we want to hurt anyone." Alira's gaze lingered on him. "Your people. They value life, even in war." Nathan nodded. "Most of us do. That's the difference between chaos and order, between fear and courage." The princess realized something then. Humans weren't feared because they were cruel. They were feared because they were effective. Their methods were misunderstood. What the galaxy called brutal was, in truth, the quiet courage to face death for others. Over the next weeks, their journey continued through several systems. Alira observed humans everywhere. Engineers repairing massive warships in record time, medics tending to wounded soldiers without hesitation, and pilots who risked everything to save civilian transports. And Nathan. Nathan was always at the center, not above them. He worked beside his crew, not commanding from a pedestal. He carried responsibility like a weight on his shoulders, but never let it crush him. One evening, as they traveled past a glowing asteroid field, Alira joined him on the observation deck again. This time, she felt more at ease. "I used to think humans were violent," she said quietly. Nathan tilted his head. "We can be. But not all violence is cruel. Sometimes it's necessary to protect." "You protect without fear," Alira said. "It's remarkable." Nathan looked at her, and for the first time, a small, genuine smile touched his lips. "It's easier to be brave when you have someone to protect." Alira's heart skipped. She didn't fully understand the feeling, but it wasn't fear. It was something warm, something new. Not all humans were perfect, of course. One night, a minor quarrel erupted between two human Marines in the ship's corridors. One accused the other of being reckless during a drill. Alira overheard the argument and expected shouting or violence. Instead, Nathan appeared, calmly listening to both sides. He didn't punish them outright. He asked questions, explained consequences, and eventually guided them to understand each other. By the end, both men bowed slightly and returned to their duties without resentment. Alira watched in awe. "They respect you," she whispered to herself. "Not because you are strong, but because you are fair." Nathan turned slightly, catching her gaze. "Leadership is not about being feared. It's about earning trust." Alira nodded slowly. She realized she had never seen a warrior like him, one who commanded respect without intimidation. That was why humans were misunderstood. Their strength was not only physical, but moral. The real test came weeks later, when the Unity received an urgent distress signal from a nearby colony under attack by rogue scavengers. The station's defenses were failing, and hundreds of civilians were at risk. Nathan immediately took command. "Prepare boarding shuttles," he ordered. "We go in as one unit. No one dies today." Lyra followed him, fear coiling in her stomach. She had trained for diplomacy, not combat. Yet as she watched him, something shifted inside her. He didn't run from danger. He met it head-on, not with anger, but with determination. The landing was tense. Shuttles dropped onto the colony's surface as blaster fire streaked overhead. Nathan led the way, directing both human and alien defenders, ensuring civilians were evacuated first. He moved with precision, scanning for threats, shielding those in danger, coordinating defenses flawlessly. Lyra witnessed him pull a young alien child out of the path of a falling structure, setting the child down safely before continuing his commands. She couldn't help but feel awe. This man, whom the galaxy had whispered about with fear, was a protector through and through. After the battle, the scavengers defeated and the colony saved, Lyra finally approached Nathan. Her hands trembled slightly. "You risked everything," she said softly. "For everyone." He looked at her, exhaustion in his eyes, but calm in his expression. "Someone had to. Not because I am brave, but because no one else could." Lyra realized then that bravery was not a title or a reputation. It was a choice, and Nathan chose it, day after day, not for glory, not for fear, but because it was the right thing to do. That night, back on the Unity, Lyra sat in her quarters and thought about the humans. She had feared them once. She had believed them to be monsters. But after seeing them in action, after seeing Nathan in action, her perspective had shifted completely. Humans were not savage. They were resilient, compassionate, and courageous. And Nathan Cole, the man who had been labeled brutal by the galaxy, was living proof. Lyra smiled faintly. For the first time since the marriage arrangements began, she looked forward to the future, not with dread, but with hope. Beside her, the stars of the galaxy stretched endlessly. And for the first time, she felt a quiet certainty. Humanity was misunderstood. Yes, but it was also extraordinary. And in Nathan, she had found the heart of that truth. The Zarathi Imperial Palace gleamed under the light of twin suns. Its towers shimmered like silver glass, and the streets below bustled with citizens celebrating the arrival of the Unity and its legendary human captain. Yet beneath the celebrations, a dark undercurrent ran through the Empire. Not everyone was happy about the alliance. Some Zarathi nobles, proud and stubborn, whispered of betrayal. They could not accept a human marrying their princess. The rumor of brutality and savage ways still weighed heavily on their minds. To them, Nathan Cole was an intruder, a dangerous outsider in the halls of their empire. Princess Lyra sensed it too. Despite all she had learned, despite all she had seen, tension remained. She had grown to trust Nathan, even admire him, but now that trust would face its first real test, it began quietly. Servants noticed subtle shifts in palace security. Minor alarms were triggered, quickly dismissed. Lyra first suspected sabotage in the communications systems, but Nathan's sharp eyes detected it immediately. "Someone doesn't want us here," he said one evening, leaning over a holomap in the Unity's temporary command room. "And I think they've been planning it for months." Lyra's lavender eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Nathan pointed to the map. "Look, here these patterns aren't random. Movement of troops, shifts in patrol schedules, even the guards who serve the royal family. Someone is setting up for an attack." Lyra's hand clenched. "They would kill you." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Not just me. They would destroy the alliance. They think your marriage is weakness, and they're willing to risk blood to prove it." Lyra's heart raced. She had once feared humans as dangerous. Now, she feared for the one she had come to respect, and perhaps, in ways she did not yet fully understand, care for deeply. The attack came sooner than expected. A grand ceremony was scheduled to honor the new alliance. The entire palace was decorated with flowing banners and crystal chandeliers. Dignitaries from multiple star systems had arrived, and beneath the glittering surface, a cadre of conspirators moved silently, armed with advanced energy weapons, ready to strike. Nathan sensed the tension immediately. His hand hovered over his sidearm, but he did not panic. He scanned the crowd, noting subtle signs of nervousness and unusual movement. "Alira," he said quietly, "stay close." "Trust me," Lyra nodded. She had seen him in combat simulations, in real battles against pirates and scavengers, but she had never seen him protect against an attack in a place so crowded with innocents, where a single misstep could cost dozens of lives. As the ceremonial trumpet sounded, a hidden squad of conspirators activated. Energy beams flared through the crowd. Guests screamed. Chaos erupted in an instant. Nathan moved with fluid precision. He shielded Alira, pushing her behind a large crystal pillar, then sprinted toward the attackers. He didn't fire recklessly. Every shot was calculated. Every move was precise. In moments, the attackers were disarmed or neutralized. Alira watched, breathless. The brutal human she had once feared was fearless, but not in the way the legends described. His strength was not in his anger or hatred. It was in his courage, his calm, his determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. One conspirator managed to slip past. Nathan aimed directly at Alira. Time slowed. Nathan reacted instantly, diving in front of her. A blast struck his shoulder, sending him crashing into the floor. Pain flared across his body, but he groaned, pushing himself up. "Stay down." He barked to Alira. "Move back." Alira froze for a moment, then remembered the lessons she had learned. Courage wasn't only about brute strength, it was also about trust. She nodded and followed his instructions. Helping shield the diplomats behind her, Nathan fired with exact precision, disarming the last attacker and securing the hall. By the time the palace guards joined them, the threat was neutralized. After the attack, the palace was in shock. Guests whispered in awe. The Deathworlder human had not only survived the attack, but had protected hundreds of lives, including the princess herself. Alira approached Nathan, her hands trembling slightly. He was leaning against a support pillar, his uniform scorched and blood-staining his shoulder. Yet he managed a small, reassuring smile. "You saved everyone," she said softly. "Even me." Nathan looked at her, his breathing heavy but steady. Someone had to. Not for glory, not for politics. Because it was right. Alira realized that the legends had been wrong. He wasn't brutal. He wasn't reckless. He was selfless. A protector, a warrior with a heart that understood responsibility. Compassion and courage, all at once. The aftermath of the attack brought clarity to the palace. The conspirators were arrested, and the emperor called a special assembly. Nobles who had doubted the humans, who had whispered about brutality, were forced to confront the truth. Princess Alira spoke before the assembly, her voice clear and commanding. "The galaxy called him brutal," she said, her eyes finding Nathan's across the room. "I call him brave. Humanity's strength is not in their fists. It is in their hearts." A stunned silence followed. The emperor nodded slowly. "Let this day mark a new beginning," he said. "An alliance not born from fear, but from respect." Nathan bowed slightly, humbly accepting the honor without arrogance. Alira watched him, pride swelling in her chest. This was the man she would call her partner, not because of his power, because of his character. In the days that followed, life aboard the Unity and the palace returned to a new normal. Alira and Nathan trained together, studied strategy, and continued their diplomatic missions. She observed him in countless small acts of heroism, tending to injured alien workers, helping humans carry supplies, listening patiently to young cadets' questions. Every day her admiration grew. She found herself smiling at his dry humor, trusting his judgment, and respecting his judgment as both a leader and a human being. One evening, as they stood on the palace balcony overlooking the city, Nathan spoke softly. "You've changed your mind about humans, haven't you?" Alira nodded, looking out at the sprawling city lights. I have. I see now that we were wrong to fear them, or to judge them by stories and rumors. Tethan glanced at her. And what about me? Her heart beat faster. I see you for who you truly are. Not a monster. Not a savage. A man who would stand between danger and those he cares for, no matter the cost. Smiled faintly, brushing a hand over the railing. Then maybe we can face the future together. Yes, she said, her voice steady, though her heart was full. Together. The months that followed were not without challenge. Political tensions simmered in the empire. Some nobles still whispered, resentful of a human's place beside a princess. Pirates and rogue fleets continued to harass borders. Yet with Nathan's leadership, Alira's diplomacy, the combined forces of human and Zarathi technology, the empire began to thrive. Alira herself became more confident, less fearful. She traveled with Nathan to frontier colonies, observing him lead negotiations and defend civilians alike. Every time she watched him, she saw proof that humans were not the monsters the galaxy feared, they were the hope the galaxy needed. And Nathan, in turn, never failed to acknowledge her wisdom, her courage, and her insight. They grew into a team, learning from one another, respecting one another, and slowly forming a bond that transcended species and tradition. One quiet night, far from the lights of any city or planet, Alira found Nathan on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, vast and silent. You know, Nathan said softly, I used to think humans were alone in this galaxy, that we had to fight and survive on our own. But now, I see we are not alone. And neither are you. Alira's hand found his. We are stronger together, she said. And perhaps the galaxy will learn from that too. Nathan looked at her, his eyes reflecting the starlight. It already has. Just look at us. Alira smiled, finally free of fear. The human she had once dreaded had shown her courage, loyalty, and compassion. She understood now that legends and rumors had never told the whole story. Humans were extraordinary not just for their strength, but for the heart behind that strength. As they stood together, hand in hand, the stars seemed to shine brighter. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but for Princess Alira and Captain Nathan Cole, there was certainty. They were partners, allies, and perhaps something more. Together, they had proven that fear could turn into trust, and misunderstanding could turn into admiration. The galaxy may have whispered of brutality and danger, but they now knew the truth. Human courage was unmatched, and its heart was unbreakable, and in that truth hope had been born.